Thanks for being here. Thanks for the download of The View here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. WeGotEd.com, RawStory.com, and RingOfFireRadio.com. On this Tuesday, the Indiana vote is taking place. The mudslinging continues between Ted Cruz and, of course, Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders neck and neck, too close to call. Sanders is in it for the long haul. There's no doubt about that. I want to draw your attention to something that has unfolded on the other side of the globe in a place that we know and know so well, and that is Iraq. You may have noticed coverage in recent days about how the Green Zone has been infiltrated by protesters, that the parliament is now under tremendous public pressure. And the right wing is going after Barack Obama, saying, see, we should have never left Iraq. Let me just do a quick refresher course and how this plays into this campaign and what candidate you might be considering supporting. First of all, Barack Obama campaigned on getting us out of Iraq. Fact. Fact number two is we were unable to come to a status forces agreement with the Iraqi government, which of course dealt with sovereignty issues and protecting American troops. Quick example, if there had been a firefight and some Iraqis had been killed and American soldiers were involved in that, they could have been brought up on charges in an Iraqi court. We would have lost our sovereignty, and Barack Obama would not go along with that. That's why we don't have a status forces agreement. Barack Obama supported the troops, and his mission was to get out of Iraq, which was supported by the majority of Americans. So now the right wing is saying, well, gosh, we should have never left, and it's Obama's fault because he couldn't cut a deal with the Iraqis. Nothing could be further from the truth. The bottom line here is, what are we going to do next? Hillary Clinton is a hawk. She has an interventionist type attitude about how to handle these types of situations, and her clarity has not been 100% on exactly how she would handle a crumbling state in the Middle East. Bernie Sanders, on the other hand, I think has been pretty clear that he is not for regime change anywhere, and he would only use troops on an absolute must-use basis. And I think Katrina Vanden Heuvel really wraps it up well in her most recent column, which you're going to see in the Washington Post, talking about what Bernie has to do moving forward when it comes to foreign policy. And she joins us. Katrina, good to have you with us.
Hey, thank you, Ed.
What does Bernie Sanders have to do? And of course, The Nation magazine endorsed Bernie some time ago. What does he have to do moving forward in these final stages of the campaign before the convention when it comes to foreign policy?
Let me just say more broadly, I think Senator Sanders needs to keep running, as you said. At this point, you know, his campaign is going to influence the direction not just of the party, but of politics in the years to come. He comes into a convention with more pledged delegates than any challenger, seeking to influence a national convention since 1968. So I think that's vital. On the foreign policy piece, Ed, I think, you know, he has energized and educated a new generation coming into American politics on many fronts. You could argue that he's not only moved Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party to the left, he's moved a generation to the progressive left. So I think that a real security agenda, a sober, realistic agenda of what national security, foreign policy for this country should be, I hope will be part of that education as he continues to run. Just briefly, I mean, Trump laid out a speech, Ed. I mean, thank you for reminding people of the status of forces agreement. I mean, Trump did take on the Republican establishment, which is wonderful to see because Bill Kristol and Krausheimer, these neocons, have never been held accountable for the disasters they have taken our country into. One of them is Iraq. But, you know, Trump issued all these partisan lies about Obama, and he's more insult than strategy. But I think his speech did reaffirm we desperately need a real debate. And I think Bernie Sanders, in his fitful way, I would say, but I think he has laid out a different course, one skeptical of regime change, skeptical of intervention, realistic about the limits of U.S. power, and the need, Ed, to focus on rebuilding an economy of shared prosperity. So I think Bernie Sanders, and I've heard that there are people around him who are continuing to push him to lay out a kind of alternative around which the Democrats and citizens could mobilize. Because Secretary Clinton has, you know, it's interesting, I'll stop here, but, you know, she embraces Obama's legacy in many areas, and it has helped her. But in this area, it is clear that Sanders is more in sync with Obama's legacy than Hillary Clinton. New book out, by Mark Landler of the New York Times reveals that in key instances, including the Iran nuclear deal, which is, I think, a centerpiece of Obama's success, foreign policy president, she was much more hesitant, much more unwilling to engage in a diplomacy that I argue, and many do, has made America, the region, the world more secure.
And isn't Bernie Sanders' approach towards the Palestinians much different from what the position of the past presidents has been?
Absolutely. Ed, as I write in the Washington Post, I think Bernie Sanders has been courageous, as he was in the debate in New York City, speaking common sense about the Middle East and arguing that true security for Israel requires treating the Palestinian people with respect and dignity. He is 100% for Israel's security, but he understands that if America is going to be an even-handed player in the region, it is vital that we really think anew about where we've been. Essentially, by the way, it's going back to U.S. foreign policy vis-a-vis Israel of a decade or so ago. And I think, Hillary Clinton, missed an opportunity to do some new thinking and came into AIPAC, the American Israeli Political Action Committee, and just pandered. So I think that's important. And of course, Ed, you've spoken many times on your program. One thing Sanders has done, and it is definitely part of foreign policy and security, he's, not only indicted a corporate trade policy, but offered an alternative fair trade policy that would rebuild the middle class, not only in this country, but there isn't, rebuilding a global middle class is in sync with the kind of Rooseveltian politics that Sanders, I think, also is emblematic of.
All right, let's get quickly, if we can, Katrina, to the states remaining. I have maintained the position that if Bernie Sanders wins Oregon and California, he takes a level of street credibility to the convention that's going to be tough to match. Now, I realize that Hillary has gotten a lot of votes in the southern states where the Democrats are never going to win, but to go to that convention having won California, I think really would strengthen his debate and strengthen his position for the movement that he has been able to generate in this country. Your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. John Nichols, my colleague, has a big article in the issue of The Nation this week, laying out the importance of Sanders going to the convention, running through Washington, D.C., June 14th, but coming in with a strong set of pledged delegates, but more important, not treating the platform as just a piece of paper. The platform tees up fights that the party needs to have, and, you need two strong wings. Jesse Jackson, who came into 1988, a contested convention, like to say it takes two wings to fly. You got two strong wings, a wing that is won, probably a wing that is lost, but you don't deny the differences. You recognize them, you debate, you find common ground, you find ways to start working together for immediate goals. And Bernie Sanders, on the rules, I say let's get rid of the superdelegates, let's rethink caucuses. On the platform, he has his signature issues, 15-hour minimum wage, end of disastrous trade policies, Medicare for all, breaking up Wall Street banks. These are issues that need to be contested. They will make the party stronger. They will make the candidate in the general stronger. And their allies who have supported Hillary Clinton, like Connecticut Representative Rosa DeLauro, good representative from Wisconsin, Mark Pocan, Sherrod Brown from Ohio, the senator. These are allies who I think will, even though they've endorsed Hillary Clinton, will be big players in finding ways to drive essentially what have been Sanders' real contributions to the party. I thought the New York Times editorial, if your listeners check it out, today was interesting, saying, Bernie Sanders' gift to the Democratic Party has been not only a more elevated, interesting election, but driving important issues that would have been off the radar, important issues for millions of Americans.
Yeah.
And that's not going to go away yet. So I think it's going to be important to keep running. And I do think he has great chances in those states you just picked
I think he does, too. I think tonight's going to be real close in Indiana.
Indiana's a state, you know it better. It's an industrial state. It's suffered from job losses. People feel shut out, not listened to. So I think it is an important state. And even, it's...
no doubt.
My husband's second home state after Kentucky. Next time we'll talk about coal. And that's a tough one, boy.
We can spend a minute on that if you've got a minute, Katrina, because I'm doing a story on West Virginia tonight. There's a harsh harsh, hard reality to climate change when it comes to the economy, because if you're going to do climate change, if you're going to change the way we use energy in this country, then there's going to be an economic component to that. And this economic component is hitting hard in Kentucky and West Virginia. And West Virginia has lost since 2013 over 10,000 coal jobs. And a lot of that has to do with regulation, which is needed for the environment. And a lot of it has to do with market conditions, because we're doing other things for energy. And, and the demand on coal is much different. The fact is, what are these folks going to do? And
I think this is one of the central issues of our time. I really do, Ed. Where I sit, there is vigorous support for tackling climate change, ensuring renewables are our future. But I say, what do you do with the men and women, the families, the communities, which are ravaged by this transition to, out of coal, which has been a family lifestyle. I do think Hillary Clinton got nailed unfairly. She spoke about, shutting down coal companies, getting them out of business. What she did do is put forward a plan, kind of what labor leader Anthony Mazzocchi years ago called just transition, a just transition. The problem is, Ed, you know this, and you're talking to people in West Virginia, you can lay out a $30 billion plan, job training, small business development, infrastructure investment, especially in Appalachia. But at the end of the day, people, do they trust government? Government has shafted them in many ways, and there's a lot of, talk, misinformation. Don't blame people. So I think we got to really address this, because this is about the politics we're seeing in this year. People shut out, people feeling they're losing their way of life. Yeah, and it's not just a job.
It's going to be tough Democratic territory. I mean, the Democrats have lost the last 4 general elections in West Virginia. The last Democrat to win it, not only once but twice, was Bill Clinton, but the economy in that state has changed dramatically. Let's get back to Indiana for just a moment. I've got the mayor of Gary, Indiana, on the show tonight. And when you look at the statistics, if there was ever a city in America, along with Detroit and Flint, but there's Gary, Indiana, with a crime rate that is skyrocketing, that a unemployment rate which is double the national average. What are we going to do with these cities? That's the big question. And does politics even matter to cities like that? And whereas,
no, I agree. Listen, I think one thing that's been off the agenda in this campaign, where is the talk about an urban reconstruction agenda? We're talk, it's guns in, jobs out. It's a failure to pay attention. You're going to get a lot of sweet talk, unfortunately, from Donald Trump. You know this, Ed. He talks a good game on creating jobs and, stopping corporations from shipping jobs out. And that speaks to people, again, who've lost their jobs. But there's nothing really serious behind what he says. I do think Bernie Sanders is trying to speak to a kind of economic populist reform message. But at the end of the day, people are looking for solutions. And that may be very tough and really beyond this campaign. I think we need to hunker down and pay attention to these cities, which, again, like so many people, have been left behind and shut down. Your interview, I think what you do, Ed, which is so important, is people hear voices, like the voices of the mayor of Gary, Indiana. People need to hear those voices, and people sitting in Washington may not be able to get things passed right now, but they should pay attention and begin finding ways, maybe at the municipal state level, if you can, to bring assistance, to find ways to help people, residents in those cities.
Katrina, always great to visit. Thanks for your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
You bet. Katrina Vanden Heuvel with us, editor, part owner of The Nation magazine. Now this. Hey folks, you've heard me talk about BioGreen Clean. I'm going to show you right now on my airplane just how tough this is. I want you to keep in mind, chemical-free, 100% plant-derived, biodegradable. It is the safest cleaner that you can get, and it's the most effective. Go to our website, wegoted.com, or go to biogreenclean.com. www.biogreenclean and order today. It's time to continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems. Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit.
We perpetuate a culture of crime all the way from Wall Street right down to the main street in our hometowns.
It's worse than it has been since FDR took control of the problem and said we can't count on industry taking care of the American labor.
They probably have already engaged into some type of criminal cover-up.
And the law prohibits the government from even doing anything about it.
Catch America's lawyer Mike Papantonio on YouTube at youtube.com/GoLeftTV.
Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, the iSave team. Bringing this production, Ed Schultz News and Commentary. We were just talking to Katrina Vanden Heuvel about coal in West Virginia. A week from today, the West Virginia primary takes place, and it is a changing economy. And there are no good answers. I mean, when somebody gets their job moved because of the market forces, not being outsourced in this case, but because coal isn't being used as much as it used to be, and there's some 10,000 jobs that have been displaced in the state of West Virginia, it's going to come home to roost on the campaign trail. And it did yesterday in Williamson, West Virginia, where a coal miner, Bo Copley, said this to Hillary Clinton.
The reason you hear those people out there saying some of the things that they say is because when you make comments like, we're going to put a lot of coal miners out of jobs, these are the kind of people that you're affecting. This is my family. While my hope is in God, that's my future. I want my family to know that they have a future here in this state, because this is a great state. I've lived my entire life here. West Virginians are proud people. We take pride in our faith in God. We take pride in our family, and we take pride in our jobs. We take pride in the fact that we're hard workers.
A very emotional issue. I don't know if there's any perfect answer. I mean, if this country is going to be serious about climate change and pivot away from the use of coal, this is a stark reality of what is going to happen even further to some of these families, and there has to be a transition plan for Americans. Hillary Clinton did the best she could with the answer.
I don't know how to explain it other than what I said was totally out of context from what I meant, because I have been talking about helping coal country for a very long time, and I did put out a plan last summer. And it was a misstatement, because what I was saying is that the way things are going now, we will continue to lose jobs. That's what I meant to say, and I think that that seems to be supported by the facts. I didn't mean that we were going to do it. What I said was that is going to happen unless we take action to try to help and prevent it.
You can talk scrubber technology all you want on these plants. The bottom line is there is no clean coal. And what the Obama administration has done is taken the approach of a diversified package of energy, which really is the best available avenue to take right now until we make a full-throated attempt to do something about alternative energy in this country. We'll talk more about it tonight on the news with Ed, 8 o'clock Eastern on RT.com and on Dish and Direct. We'll see you then. Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team bring you Ed Schultz News and Commentary. We'll see you tomorrow.